I know you're expecting to see Pastor Brad in this space, and no, he's not just gotten a lot older looking. I'm Ralph DeHaan, and I'm proud to be associated with Pastor Brad at Connect Church. But I'm going to help you with this cross-training session. I hope you've been enjoying the cross-training sessions. I know I have, and I think Pastor Brad does an awesome job with them. And I just want to get across to you that Pastor Brad has been at this work at Connect Church for some years now, I think 4 or 5, and he's been a pastor for maybe 16, 17 years. I am not a pastor, but I've been an eye doctor and a dad for like 30 some years, probably twice as long as Pastor Brad's been a pastor. And so my heart comes from a father who has 3 adult Christian children. They're in their 30s. And I came across a couple verses here in Acts that you read just a bit ago, and it spoke to me of some things I'd like to get across to my children, and you get to listen in on this one. And so I hope it works well for your training, and let's just go to thinking there about what goes on in Acts 9. I think what you'll notice right away is Barnabas is in these verses, and you also see that Saul, later on he's going to be called Paul, he's more of the star of the show. And what I'm trying to really get at, if I can drive right to the point in these verses, I think many of you will have heard about Barnabas being the son of encouragement or somehow associated with being an encourager. And that's all good and well, and I want you to think about that. I also want you to think about how can encouragement be more than words? What do Christians do? I want to be a little careful about pulling too far away from where I know Pastor Brad has been with us, talking about being a Christian, being in relationship with Jesus is more about being than doing. And I concur with that 100%, and that's part of why I've needed some of the cross-training sessions we've had, because it's helped me to center better on that. I hope it's helping you in that way. And still, in the Christian life, while it has lots of mysteries, one of those mysteries is, well, now that I know these things, now that I know that Jesus has saved me, that I know that God is in charge, I know that serving Jesus is the thing to do. How do I do it? What do I do? And I think these couple verses just kind of throw a good light on that I'd like you to see. So I want you to see, first of all, in Acts 9, that's 26 and 27, you see there where Barnabas brings Saul to the apostles. And I want you to see there right off the bat, that means Barnabas had some kind of status with the apostles, with the believers in Jerusalem at that time. He had some kind of status with them, some credibility. And he simply uses that. He offers it and uses it for Saul's behalf. And he takes Saul to the apostles. And of course, we know in the story that all works out well. And Saul ends up being called Paul later. He goes on 3 big missionary journeys. And Barnabas joins him actually on that first one too. And what I want you to see is really 3 basic things in these verses of things we can learn. And that is, number 1, Barnabas, while important in the story, he's not the guy in charge. And we can learn about that. To be playing important roles doesn't always mean we have to be in charge. Not at all. Usually not, in fact. And I would say that's almost the second point is usually others are in charge. And what we're doing, what we want to do, how to be an encourager, is to look around ourselves, see where God is busy working, and where we see him working, that's what we want to go there. Especially what we know as Christians is that he's working in a lot of places at a lot of times. But if we see something that's exciting to us, interesting to us, then we should go there and find out what's going on. And as we become acquainted with the leaders, we can say to those leaders, how can I help? And what's important about that how can I help, that attitude, that posture, it says a lot, because it's how can I help? It's not what help do you need? How can I help? So God isn't asking you to come with things you don't have. He's asking you for what do you have? Maybe you have a couple hours a week. Maybe you have some money in your bank account. Maybe you have some expertise in something that's needed in this ministry at this time. And it doesn't have to be ministry exactly. It's just somebody doing what you see that God has called them to do, and you're excited about that, and you want to join in some way. The way to do it is just to step in there and say, how can I help? That's what we see Barnabas doing in these verses. He's seeing things happening with the gospel, and he steps in and says, how can I help? I think the reason I wanted you to read also verse 31 is because it talked there about how the church was at peace and growing. And that's the other big point about when we can take that posture of I'm not in charge, God is in charge, others in charge, but I'm looking for how can I help? When I do that, what happens is God takes those efforts, how little they might be. He can take those efforts and he multiplies them. And I wanted you to, I've seen that many times in my life. I wanted you to see that also in these verses. So that's my encouragement to you, is to look around yourself, try to find places where you see God at work in ways that you find exciting, and you say, how can I help? Does that involve prayer? Of course. You need to pray about those things, but see where God's leading and concentrate on those things. And those things have been a blessing in my life. I pray for there to be a blessing in my children's lives. I pray that they're a blessing in your life. Thank you.